Pray with me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Have you ever tried to hang a painting or a picture in your house? If you have, and if you have an eye for detail, then you know that the frame you choose is an important decision. I read a story not too long ago about a woman who purchased this beautiful painting of a lake in the Wyoming Wind River Mountains. It had this beautiful, cool palette. It was blue. It signaled the connection between water, earth, and sky. And the woman bought it because it invited her to think deeply about nature. Nature and its need for rest and renewal, which is much like our own need for rest and renewal. It reminded her, this beautiful painting reminded her of God's creation and our connection to it as human beings. She got a lot out of this painting. The only problem with it, the only thing wrong with it, was that it was framed in this gaudy, thick, golden frame. The edges were too wide, so it deflected its attention away from the lake that was meant to be the focal point of the painting. And it had this metallic sheen around it that made it almost invisible, made the subdued tones of the mountains almost invisible in this painting. The frame didn't really allow for the full beauty or mystery of this painting to come to life. And every time this woman would pass it in her house, the first thing she would think is, goodness, I need to fix that frame. As we start this new year together, I believe that God is calling us as individuals and as a church to take time to consider what it means to live deeply transformed lives of worship. God, who is perhaps the greatest artist of all time, painted this world and our lives for the purpose of dancing with the depth and wonder and mystery of God. In fact, I'm not sure that there is a better way to think about worship than to define it as this continual dance with the depth and wonder and mystery of God throughout our whole lives. But most of us know that sometimes the way that we frame our worship doesn't give us a whole lot of permission to dance with mystery. When we think about what it means to worship God well, all sorts of things come to mind, but mystery is often not favored among them. We nail down doctrines and creedal statements because certainly they will help us figure out the best way to think about God. We exhaust ourselves with volunteering, or we exhaust our resources with giving, or we exhaust our schedules with people, because certainly these practices will help us figure out the best way to become more like God. We have expectations for how Sunday mornings should look, or how many people should be in attendance at worship, or who should come to community events, because certainly these details are important in figuring out the most acceptable way to please God. More often, we find ourselves framing and defining our worship with a quest for certainty than we do embracing a deeply mysterious God who sits at the center of the painting. Now, the frame that I'm describing is not all bad. I'm not suggesting that we throw it out altogether. Doctrines and spiritual disciplines and careful discernment and how we carry out our life of faith together as a community, those things are all important. But perhaps perhaps like the woman who needed to strip and buff and refocus her frame in order to see the beauty of the painting behind it, we might need to think about doing the same. In our scripture passage for this morning, I wonder if John was able to recognize the beauty and the depth of God that radiated in this unexpected person, this Jesus of Nazareth, because John learned to embrace deep mystery. We know that many people, including some of those who came to John that day in a panicked search for God, as they wandered through the wilderness of persecution and defeat, we know that many of them scoffed at the idea that the power of God could show up in such an unexpected and lowly place, in a poor, ordinary Jewish man. Many of them were looking for certainty. They were looking for familiar answers that gave them comfort in what they thought they already knew, rather than embracing the mystery of a God who often shows up in unexpected and even in inconvenient ways. They asked, are you the Messiah? And John said, no. Well, are you Elijah? Again, John said, no. Well, are you the prophet, Moses? And again, no. It's as if you can almost hear these people saying, well, if you are not here to save us, then who the heck are you and what good are you to us? But John seemed to have no problem telling them the truth. I'm the voice of someone in the wilderness preparing the way for the Lord. I am a voice. I'm just a voice standing in the darkness of uncertainty, standing in the mystery of the future. Just like you, I am a voice, attempting to hold on to the promises of a mysterious God in what can sometimes be a very dark world. See, from John's birth, he had been given a task to prepare the way. But for whom or what, John didn't exactly know. He admits as much a few times in this passage. I myself did not know him, but I came baptizing with water that he might be revealed. I myself did not know him, but I came baptizing with water until he comes and baptizes with the Holy Spirit. I myself did not know him, but I came baptizing with water. And now I see the mystery of God revealed. And I can testify that it's this man, Jesus. Much like the Jewish people, much like maybe even you and I, all John had was a promise from long ago. The mystery of God would continue to be revealed in new ways in this world. And John's task, no matter how difficult it might have seemed, was to wade into the waters, the deep waters of faith. To delve deeply into the mystery of what he didn't know and what he didn't understand, and to witness to its coming anyways, in the midst of uncertainty. Many of us feel like we are living in very uncertain times. And in uncertain times, there are few things that we fight harder for than certainty. You know what I mean. It's very difficult for us as human beings to sit with mystery or the unknown. We see this fight for certainty in ways big and small. We want certainty when we get sick and we furiously search the internet to diagnose our ailment, even if it certainly convinces us that our condition is worse than if we would have just gone to see a regular trained physician in the first place. We see this fight for certainty Every time we encounter someone who thinks differently from us, and we're attempted to reduce them into categories of right or wrong, friend or foe, because it's just easier to think that everything is simple than to do the hard work of understanding that human life is actually quite complex. We see the fight for certainty when church denominations can't set aside differences for the work of the kingdom that we all share, because we think we have the best handle on what pleases or displeases God. And we see it every time that we proclaim that we believe in a God who is all-powerful and beyond all human comprehension. But then we refuse to think or talk or imagine God in new ways because we're either afraid of getting God wrong or because we feel pretty confident that we've actually got God nailed down. In all of these examples, the fact is that when we become insistent on certainty, we run the risk of missing all the ways that God actually wants to mysteriously show up in this world. The first difficult truth that we have to admit if we're ever going to live a life of deep faith is that we cannot know all there is to know about God. We cannot be certain. Like John, we're only given so many clues. And we get inklings of this hard fact all the time. Every time we begin wondering, when our life doesn't go our way, or when we fear over an unknown future, or we sit in the darkness of our human pain and we wonder if God is there or what God is doing. Deep down, we know that if we think about God long enough, we're left with so many more unanswered questions than answered ones. But isn't that the deep irony of faith? Doesn't our walk with God always come with some fear and trembling? Faith is less about certainty and more about trust. Trust in a God that we don't always understand. John the Baptist knew this. He didn't put stipulations around how or when he thought God could show up. He didn't need answers to what I'm sure were his many questions in order to live out the call that God put on his life. And he didn't judge people, whether or not he thought they were worthy vessels for the Holy Spirit. And because of all that, John didn't miss when God showed up. John was able to stand on the banks of the Jordan and testify that his faith in the mystery of God was not in vain, because he was ready to receive whatever or whoever God had in store for him. You know, God painted this created world, our communities, our lives, with all of its colorful nuances and shades, so that we might learn to live out our days in communion with the Creator. That is why we're here. And this year, we're going to begin to gaze deeply at this painting of this life that God has given us. We're going to gaze upon the colors of the mountaintops and their valleys below. We're going to look for fresh springs of water, and we're going to trudge through deserts and wilderness. We're not going to let a detail go unnoticed, so that we might begin to build a frame around it. We're going to ask ourselves important questions this year. What is worship? What do we know about God? What are we okay with not knowing about God? What does communion with God look like? Why does it matter? We're going to give each of these questions the time that it deserves. But first, before we dive into those questions, we have to embrace deep mystery So that like John, when we encounter it, we'll recognize it in the world. And we'll have the opportunity to say with all certainty, just like John, I have seen, and I can testify that this is God's chosen one.